It was a gloomy Monday morning. The rain had been heavy all night, and the clouds were still dark in the skies. Waking up to the pitter-patter of the rain, Lois passed a glance at her boyfriend Caleb. Last night was wild. She barely remembered anything. Like every morning, she splashed some water onto her face and went to wake up her daughter Veronica. It was quiet. She probably wasn't awake. "Veronica, get up, it's..." "Veronica?" Lois fell silent, seeing the room empty. She called Veronica a few times, but there was no answer. A bit worried, she checked the bathroom and took a walk around the whole house before returning to Veronica's room, feeling an awful rush of anxiety. There was no sign of her daughter. "Caleb, get up. Veronica's not in her room. She's not in the house." "What? What are you saying?" Caleb pulled out of bed, confused. Veronica was only 11 years old. Where could she go? After checking the house again, walking around the block, talking to the neighbors, to no help, Lois called the police as her hands trembled. 911, what is the emergency? "My daughter's missing. She's only 11 years old. I can't find her. She's never gone out on her own." "When did you realize she was missing?" "About an hour ago." Unfortunately, the police weren't of much help. They kept repeating the same thing. It was too early to declare a person missing. It had yet to be 24 hours since Veronica was last seen, and she would most likely return before then. "Caleb, what am I going to do? Where could she go?" "Don't worry, I'll go out and search." Caleb drove around the neighborhood, checking Veronica's school, the park, speaking to her friends. Lois checked out the window whenever she heard a car pass by. She called everyone she could think of. But the whole day passed. Caleb returned home alone, and Veronica didn't show up. When a few days had gone by, the police sent out search parties throughout Chicago. Private investigators were informed. Small local media had caught on to the news, but all were unsuccessful in finding answers. And as with all things, when days turned to months, the case grew old. Police said they were still on the search. But Lois knew they had stopped trying. She became depressed. Her relationship with Caleb broke off. And soon, everyone had moved on. Everyone except for Veronica's mother, Lois. "Be back home on time, all right?" "You worry too much, Grandma. I'll be fine." Ava waved goodbye to her grandma as she ran out the door on her way to work. This was her first job at a bookstore, and in the past few days of working there, things were still pretty exciting. Ava lived in the small rural town of Derby, Indiana. There weren't many stores and shops here, nor were there many people, but it was a beautiful place. Just a 15-minute walk away, she reached the store, picking up the newspaper and headed inside. Her usual morning routine at the store was to sit back, read the news, get her daily dose of gossip while she waited for the afternoon rush. But today, as she flipped through the pages, she stopped seeing a familiar picture. It was an old Christmas picture of herself, along with her mother and her mother's boyfriend at the time, Jack. Written in bold, "Mother still hasn't lost hope in searching for her missing daughter for the past 5 years. Veronica Winslet, age 16, brunette, green eyes. She's still searching for me?" No one here knew Ava's secret, that she was Veronica Winslet, that she had ran away from her home years ago. She remembered that frightening night she went missing. She didn't know what she had escaped from, but she saw something so terrifying, she knew she couldn't live in that house anymore. It was a raining, thundering night. Veronica was tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep. Seeking comfort, she tiptoed to her mother's room, afraid to wake up her boyfriend Caleb. She didn't like him. As a matter of fact, she never liked any of her mother's boyfriends. Veronica had never seen her father. Her mother told her that he had passed away before her birth. Growing up, she remembered seeing at least 3 or 4 boyfriends of her mother. One breakup after the other before she left that house at the age of 11. At the time, she really didn't know how to feel about it. They were her friends. But now she knew her mother perhaps led a wild life. That night, when Veronica slowly peeked into her mother's bedroom, she couldn't see much. It was dark, but the windows were open. The rain splattered in, and the winds gave her the chills. As her eyes adjusted, Veronica felt a bit uncomfortable seeing her mother standing beside the bed. Caleb was deep asleep. She was about to knock on the door when she stopped, seeing something unusual about her mother. Through the reflection in the mirror, she could vaguely make out horns protruding from her head. Wings ran long down her back, her fingers tipped with long nails. Veronica was frightened. Suddenly hearing the door creak, she froze as her mother turned. She probably hadn't seen her, but Veronica couldn't forget the look in her eyes. She didn't know what she was, but she knew she wasn't human. Veronica's instincts told her to run, and she did. She left the house in the middle of the night, not knowing where she was going. But there was no way she was returning back home. She didn't know what happened to her mother. She didn't know who to trust anymore. All she knew was that she wasn't safe in her own house. Soaking in the rain, by dawn, Veronica had no clue where she was, but she was still close enough for her mother to find her. She had no money. If she called anyone, they would send her back. Where would she go? Spotting a dairy truck, on the right opportunity, Veronica slipped into the back, out of notice of the workers. The truck took off. Veronica didn't know where it was headed to, but she hoped it would take her far. Hiding in the corner, she listened to the glass containers clanking in the motion of the truck before she soon fell asleep. Veronica woke up to the sound of men murmuring. She was frightened when she saw a crowd gathered around her. An old woman walked out, approaching her. "Dear, how did you get in here?" Anxiously, Veronica stuttered. Where am I?" "You're in Derby, Indiana. What's your name, child?" "I'm Ava Gale. Come with me." When Veronica got off the truck, she realized she was in the middle of nowhere, at what looked like a farm. The old woman took her inside, where she introduced her to her husband and told him about her situation. Mr. and Mrs. Adams were kind to her and offered her food and allowed her to freshen up before they would call the police and get her help. But Veronica didn't want to go back home. What would she do? "Where are you from? What is your address?" "I don't know my address or my phone number. I recently moved into a new house. I wasn't familiar with the place." "Which state?" "Texas." "What is your mother's name?" "Joanna Rogers." Veronica gave all the wrong information to the police. Mr. and Mrs. Adams were quite well known in Derby and told the police they would shelter her until her family was found. But of course, the police weren't able to find her mother. Days, weeks, months went by. Mr. and Mrs. Adams treated her with lots of care and tried to console her. Over time, they accepted Veronica as one of their own. She had become part of the family. Veronica started living a new life in Derby, where she felt safe. She got a new ID, she went to school. People here knew her as Ava Gale, and that's how she wanted it to be. After turning 16, she had been trying to convince Mrs. Adams to allow her to get a job. And almost after a whole year, she finally started working at this nearby bookstore. But after 5 years, why was her mother still looking for her? Was it because she missed her, or was it because Veronica was a witness over her mother's secret? Had she seen her that night? Sometimes Veronica wondered if anyone else knew. Did her boyfriends know? Was that the reason behind all the breakups? They had seen what Veronica had seen? Whatever the reason, she had no wishes to go back. Today she had told Mrs. Adams she would be home a little late. She was meeting a friend after work. Lisa. They had been friends for a few years now and had become quite close, but news was, Lisa was moving to Chicago next year for college. I can't wait to get out of this small town, live on my own in the city and in Chicago, get a boyfriend, party and have fun. Veronica rolled her eyes. I don't know why you're always so excited about Chicago. I'm happy here in Derby, and I'd rather not get involved with a man and then have my heart broken. I've seen this happen too many times. They use you and they leave you. Come on, Veronica. You can't stay single forever. It's your birthday tomorrow. We're going out. There's someone you have to meet. He's handsome. No more questions. You'll thank me later. I don't think so. Oh, I know why. It's your condition you're worried about. What condition? Turning 17 and still stuck in the body of a 10-year-old boy? Maybe that's why you're not into dating. Shh, Lisa, I told you that was a secret. I went to the doctor, they said it was absolutely fine. Some people just reach that stage a little late. Veronica tried to shut Lisa up, but this was something Lisa always teased her about. Veronica still looked like a young girl. She had grown taller, but she still hadn't reached what you call womanhood. After spending the evening at Lisa's place, Veronica headed home, reaching the bar around 8. What's that smell? Grandma, I'm home. Where were you, Missy? Grandpa was at Lisa's. Come on, I have a surprise for you. Happy birthday! You guys never forget. Mrs. Adam had baked a cake to celebrate the occasion. The Adams were quite lonely in their lives. They didn't have any children of their own, and Veronica filled that empty space in their lives. She was deeply grateful she had found such loving people who took responsibility of her and cared for her. She had no blood relationship with them, but they were closer than family. That night, she went to bed happy and content with her life. As she closed her eyes, she heard the rain begin to pour as she drifted off. In the middle of the night, however, she tossed in bed feeling anxious. She felt like something was crawling under her skin. The time has come. The time has come. Veronica jumped up from her sleep. Sweating profusely, she saw that dreadful nightmare again, her mother. She always wondered why she saw the same dream over and over again, if it had any meaning, but all she wished for these past years was to forget her. Veronica got out of bed. It was exactly 12 a.m. Her head was hurting. There was a piercing pain in her upper and lower back. She brushed back her hair when she suddenly felt something on the side of her forehead. Rushing to the mirror, she glanced at herself. What was happening? Veronica stumbled back in horror as she recognized a familiar form. There was no use of running away. It ran in her blood. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends and family.